reaches the stage where they're ready to fly, then the mother kicks them out of the nest. Learn to fly and take care of yourself. That's it. The same process. Kick them out. They shouldn't be in the house anymore. So, since both males and females are kicked out of the home and are expected to look after themselves, when the time comes to divide up inheritance, it is only fair that it is divided 50-50. Because the woman has to take care of herself the same as the man. Same. So now when they hear that in Muslim lands, according to Islamic law, the male gets 2 times the portion of the female, is oppression, injustice. This is how they read it. Because in their context, it would be oppression and injustice. But they don't realize that in Muslim context, Muslim males are responsible for Muslim females. Responsible for their maintenance, their protection, their accommodations. That is the responsibility of Muslim males. So when a son and a brother, a sister, when a son and a daughter or brother and sister, when they are to inherit, an equal portion is given to them of that inheritance, but an additional portion is given to the male because he may be responsible for his sister. The sister will never be asked to be responsible and look after her brother, but the brother will be asked to look after the sister. The uncle will be asked, not the aunt. The grandfather will be asked, not the grandmother. The son will be asked, not the daughter, to take care of the females of the family. That is the reality of Muslim society, Islamic tradition and law. So they have misinterpreted just the cold facts. 2 portions to 1 instead of 1 to 1 equal. 50-50. Also, they may interpret, for example, the fact that Muslims bow down in the pictures of Mecca to the Kaaba, right? That we are worshipping the Kaaba. Muslims worship the black stone. It's a common thing they say. Why? Because that's what it appears to them, that we're all bowing down to the Kaaba. And Muslims also make it worse by putting on their prayer mats pictures of the Kaaba. And here we are prostrating on the Kaaba. And we put in our homes picture of the Kaaba, right where we're going to make, in Qibla, where we're going to make Salah. So we actually compound it, because this is a malpractice on our part. Really, we should not be doing that. Putting Kaaba on our prayer rug, why? Prophet ﷺ, when he had a shirt which had stripes on it, and it caught his attention in Salah, he gave it away, so as not to be disturbed mentally in prayer by any objects around him. Now we are making prayer mats with all kinds of designs and picture of the Kaaba and everything. You're looking at it trying to concentrate, and then your eyes are seeing these lines start to move, and you know, this is all confusion. Your prayer mat should be plain. Zip, nothing on it, just plain. If you use one. And we don't really have prayer mats anyway, but you put on the ground when you pray, it should be plain. It shouldn't catch your attention or your eye, because it's from Shaitan. Those designs are from Shaitan to take away from your Salah. And that's what the Prophet ﷺ said. Shaitan is busy in the salah, just disturbing you with this and that, and he's just eating up the reward from your prayer. So the way we function with regards to the Kaaba, where we've exaggerated the Kaaba, leads to misunderstandings, inadvertent statements about us. Similarly, the crescent. They always talk about the cross and the crescent. The cross is Christianity, the crescent is Muslim. The red crescent instead of the red cross. And we put on top of our masjids a crescent. Like the Christians have a cross. And probably, if you took a cross and publicly jumped up and down on it and set it on fire, Christians would be enraged. And if they took a crescent and jumped up and down on it and set it on fire, Muslims would be enraged. But the crescent means nothing to us. It means absolutely nothing. It has nothing to do with Islam. It was introduced some hundreds of years ago, as a symbol because of the fact that Ramadan we are looking out for the crescent. Eid we're looking out for the crescent. So the crescent is something in our, you could say, in our means of determining time. That's all. It's not a religious symbol, but we will have rings with star and the crescent, banners with the star and the crescent, and we feel that's Islam, that's our symbol. But that is our mistake. We have created this mistake and this misunderstanding. Also, another example could be that we worship Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And that's why they used to call us Mohammedans. The early colonial powers, when they gained control over Nigeria, Ghana, these countries, Muslim countries, they called us Mohammedans. As they were Christians who worship Christ, we were Mohammedans who worship Muhammad. They didn't go in to understand the religion as to but they said, okay, Muhammad is the main one for them, so he must be worshipped. And also, some of their writers had also depicted Muhammad ﷺ and the Pope during the Crusades as being the idol which the Muslims worshipped. So Dante, a famous European writer, in his book, in this book by Dante, he put in it that among the idols found in the lowest levels of the hellfire would be Muhammad. They put that in. And this book was read all across Europe. Dante's, it's called Dante's Inferno or something. Anyway, point is, that is the image presented falsely. But of course, we do have Muslims who will pray to Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and call on him to do things for them as Christians call on Jesus. This is reality. So we have Muslims who, in their own practices, have created this misconception or reinforced this misconception. If we move on to the other source of misunderstandings about Islam, creating this Islamophobia, is what we call inadvertent, we said the inadvertent source. Misinterpretation was one. The second may be called Muslim malpractice, meaning practices common amongst Muslims which have nothing to do with Islam at all. The biggest one, the biggest noise is made about publicly today, globally, is FGM. Female genital mutilation. I'm sure you've seen articles, female genital mutilation, where body parts of the female are cut out, affecting their own ability to enjoy the sexual act. Not that it removes it, but it affects it significantly. Sewing up body parts to such a degree that before, in some countries where it is practiced very stringently, some countries, before a man can go to his wife, she has to go to the doctor. He opens her up so he can have relations with her at the wedding night. And some places they have, you know, where the issue of going to the hospital and having it done, they have somebody whose job at the wedding night, before she joins the man, they take her aside, slit her open, and put her in. Of course, she's bleeding, and it's horrendous stuff. You know, I believe in Nigeria this is not the practice, or it's not a common practice. Not the common practice. Okay. Now, this is associated with Muslims, but actually, when you go to the places where it is most practiced, Egypt, both the Christians of Egypt, the Coptic Christians and the Muslims do it. When you go to Ethiopia, both the Coptic Christians of Ethiopia and the Muslims do it. When you go to Sudan, both the Christians and the Muslims do it. When you go to Kenya, it's done by both. So, it is actually a cultural practice which preceded Islam. It is not specific to Muslims, because once you leave those regions, then you don't find it. This is something unheard of. In Indonesia, the biggest Muslim country in the world, over 300 million Muslims, and nobody has ever heard of FGM. So, what does that mean? It's not from Islamic teachings. Also, among the malpractices, we find honor killing. Honor killing. This is common in the Middle Eastern region, among the Turks, among the Gulf, Palestinians, Jordanians, where a girl dishonors the family by having relations with a boy outside of marriage. It could just be a boyfriend that she's talking to. And the family finds out, they will kill her. The father, the brother, the uncle, they will take her, catch her, take her, and kill her. Beat her to death or whatever. They call it honor killing. Killing for the honor of the family. They do it in Pakistan also. Honor killing. Now, because those countries I mentioned are mostly Muslim countries, Pakistan is a Muslim country, they say it's a Muslim practice. Honor killing is, in their mind, a part of Islam. But really, in Islam, it's murder. It's considered murder, and the ones who commit it should be executed. Ones who commit it should be executed. It's not a part of Islam, from Islamic teachings. So, of course, ISIS, Boko Haram, Qaeda, Abu Sayyaf, these groups that have appeared among Muslims in our time. Groups that are engaged in extremes of violence in the name of Islam, unleashing violence against innocent populations. Not war, not the battlefield, because of course we know that there's a common practice of deliberate distortion where the media and those who are engaged in attacking Muslims will take verses out of the Quran at random and say, look, this is what the Quran says, to kill non-Muslims. فَاقْتُلُوهُمْ حَيْثُ ثَقِفْتُمُوهُمْ. Kill them wherever you find them. You say, look at that. They don't look at the verse before, which says, if you are attacked and you are fighting them, you can't afford to be gentle. This is now war, this is life and death, so you have to kill them wherever you find them, on the battlefield. But they just took the section, kill them wherever you find them. And they don't read after where it says, and if they offer peace, accept the peace. Allah does not let love exist. And treat them well. So all of that is deleted. They only deal with the middle verse which says, kill them wherever you find them. This is deliberate. But looking back at these groups that are engaged in suicide bombing, which is haram in Islam, engaged in attacks against civilian populations, stealing wealth in the name of Islam, after declaring Muslims, because most of these groups are killing Muslims. Most of these groups are just killing Muslims. Okay, a Christian comes up here or there in Iraq and they make a big thing about it. But all of the thousands of Muslims that they've killed, it's like Muslims and Muslim lives don't matter. So these groups are using the name of Islam, abusing the religion of Islam, committing acts of truly terrorism, evil, corruption, massacres in the name of Islam, in the name of jihad. And you have a tradition already here of jihad, which was known to have reformed the region. Sheikh Uthman Dan Fodio's jihad reformed the region, brought justice to the people, spread the knowledge of Islam, and brought peace and tranquility to the country. But using that same word, jihad, they now use it to justify their evil. And of course, they will put in the media, Western media, constantly, any acts, anything connected to them, they'll put it in the media. So people think that this whole country is under attack by Boko Haram. Muslim militants are attacking the country left and right. That's why people, when they hear I'm going to Nigeria, say, be careful, beware. If they hear I'm going to Pakistan, they say, hey, be careful, Pakistan. Same thing. Yes, there are bombings taking place. Yes, people are assassinated and murdered. But if you were to put the numbers of people who are killed in America today, go and Google the statistics. How many people are killed in America? If you get the International Tribune, where they have a center page where they go state by state of the 52 states of America, 51 states of America, and they put what is going on in each state. And mostly what they put are the crimes that are taking place, murders. You would think from that that America is under siege. The whole country is in total violence. Because in every state, murder, blowing up, bombing, massacres are going on every day. Every day. But they are so used to it in the different states, it doesn't make front page news anymore. Only a few instances they will bring to the front page. But if they were to dedicate the front pages of their newspapers with the crimes going on in America, then it would far exceed anything going on in the Muslim world. Far exceed. So, we have our own problem. In spite of what is happening in the media, these groups and their like represent a challenge to the Muslim world today. But we need to understand the solution. Where is the solution? How do we solve this problem? How do we correct this situation? I propose two main ways. One, cooperation. That Muslim countries cooperate in dealing with this problem politically. That is a huge challenge. The problem of Israel cannot be solved by any 1, 2, 3 Muslim country. That can only be resolved by the Muslim Ummah. When we come back together, as Allah had told us in the Quran, وَجَعَلْنَاكُمْ أُمَّةً وَسَطًا. We have made you a single, moderate nation, free from the extremes to the right or the left, until we're able to come back together and cooperate with each other as the brotherhood. إِنَّمَا الْمُؤْمِنُونَ إِخْوَةً. The whole brotherhood, we're all one brotherhood, sisterhood of faith. Then these political issues will be very difficult to resolve. We may succeed in some cases and fail in many others. The other area is that of education. Because these groups who distort the image of Islam, portray false information in the media, these groups can only survive and grow in ignorance, where people are ignorant. So we owe it to ourselves to ensure that our youth, the generation coming up, are properly educated. Properly educated. Educated, but not only educated, but properly educated. Meaning that young Muslims, Muslim children, youths, they have a right to Islamized education. That is their right. It is not enough for us to just give them education, but that education should be given to them from an Islamic perspective. Islamized education. Education which has a moral foundation to it. When the Prophet ﷺ had said, إِنَّمَا بُعِثْتُ لِيُتَمِّمَ مَكَارِمَ الْأَخْلَاقِ, I was only sent to perfect for you the highest of moral character traits. Morality. Prophet Muhammad ﷺ made morality the essence of the message of Islam. That's why we are the only ones in the world right now standing firm against the tsunami of homosexuality. the global tsunami of homosexuality which has just knocked out the nations. We are the only ones. There are other the Catholic Church is struggling, but don't be surprised if in a year or 2 or 5 you have homosexual bishops, you know, because it's being bred amongst them anyway. With this celibacy where a man or a woman, a nun, is not allowed to marry, that does not erase the desires of the man and the woman. So if you don't allow it to come out in the natural way through marriage, it is going to come out in an unnatural way. Either through abuse of the children, pedophilia, which is widespread now amongst Catholic priests, has been for centuries. Or it's going to be infidelity, relations between nuns and priests in the back, in the closet, hidden from the public. When they made excavations around the ancient monasteries in Italy, they found outside the walls of the monastery little bodies, remains, bones of thousands and thousands of children that were buried to keep the secret hidden. Outside the nunneries where the nuns would get pregnant, they would have a baby, they would bury the baby. So if it doesn't come out like, and then the other option is nun to nun lesbianism, priest to priest homosexuality. So it's already rampant in their ranks. Homosexuality is already rampant in their ranks. It's just a matter of one of the bishops coming out of the closet, as they say. He will come out and say, well, actually, I am a homosexual. And then another one will pop up, and another one will pop up, and then all of a sudden, the church now has to back off. It's just a matter of time. But in our case, homosexuality will never be accepted. In Islam, it will never be accepted. It is not acceptable in Islam. No excuse can be made for it. This position will never change. Though, you do have some modern Muslims today who have established in San Francisco and in Toronto homosexual masjid. Yeah, it's coming. And they will boost it in the newspaper and they make a big thing about it and everything. But it will always be a fringe, only a small minority. It cannot become the norm amongst Muslims. You know, we honor the Quran in reading and believing and understanding and practicing in a way which the Christians have abandoned. The Old Testament, which is clear, kill the homosexual, is clear in Deuteronomy. Homosexuals are to be killed. But now they say that's the Old Testament. We now follow the New Testament. But even so, the church was opposed to homosexuality. Christians were opposed to homosexuality all the way up until the 70s. Even though they had abandoned in toto the Old Testament, they still used the laws for their own legal systems, etc. It's only in the 21st century or in the 20th century when they started the process of secularization, removing religion's impact on law, on education, etc., etc. So for Muslims, education needs to be taught from an Islamic perspective. Everything that we teach should be from an Islamic perspective. That is the proper way. And in that way, our youth will have a proper understanding and not become easy prey, easy recruits for groups like Abu Sayyaf and ISIS and Boko Haram, etc. It is through proper Islamized education. I stress Islamized education as opposed to Islamic education, meaning that when people say Islamic education, they mean Quran, Hadith, and Islamic studies, Arabic. That's it. That's Islamic education. But we need what is called secular education. They call it secular. We just call it modern education. Acquired knowledge. We need to teach it also, because we need engineers, we need doctors, we need all people in all of these fields. So our educational system should incorporate and encompass all that is available which is useful to humankind. As long as it's useful, we should be teaching it. So we need to develop such institutions. Alhamdulillah, you are making some efforts here, with your institution, which I visited the last time I came 2 years ago, almost 3 years ago when I visited. I visited your school, etc. But when I visited the school here and I asked the school children from your Islamic school, who among you can raise his hand or her hand and say, and this is the grade, your senior secondary school students, who among you can raise his or her hand and say, I have never cheated on any test or examination? Only a few hands came up. The principal was embarrassed. The most that he could say to me was, at least they're honest. But that is not the solution. That is not the solution. The solution is that morality needs to be brought back into the classroom. Every single class which is taught in the school, from kindergarten to SS3, should have in it a moral message. When you're teaching science, when you're teaching mathematics, whatever you're teaching, the moral message should be given. Till you reach the stage where, when you ask that question to your senior secondary graduating class, who among you can raise your hands? And they all raise their hands with few exceptions. When you reach that point, then you have achieved the goal of education in Islam. Because that moral stature is what we need to rebuild this country, to change this country. The biggest problem that people are faced with in this country is corruption. We know it from top to bottom. Your new President Buhari is chasing all the previous ones who were corrupt and, trying to clean things up. May Allah give him long life in righteousness and guide him to what is best for the country, for its people. But we need citizens, not just one man. One man cannot change it all. He needs to have behind him citizens who are upright. And I know I won't ask you, you're all adults here, you're not school children. I won't ask you how many of you made it through to high school and graduated without ever cheating. I won't ask you, because I know they're like you. You are like them. They are your children. There still is only a few. Yeah, you put your hand up. As I said, among them there were a few. Yeah. I don't want to embarrass you. It's okay. It's okay. We know the facts. You're all laughing. We know the facts, right? And that is what we need to correct. Because as I tell these high school students, and it's the same message I've given in Pakistan, the same problem exists there. In the best of the schools, same problem. Because the emphasis on morality is not there. The reality is that if we remove all of the corrupt individuals who are governing and running the society today and replace them with our new graduates, it will be more of the same. That's the problem. How do we solve that problem? We have to tackle the whole educational process from an Islamic perspective. When you give the prize at the end of the year to the best student, when you give that prize as an academic prize, the one who got the top marks, you are sending them a message, a wrong message. Because you're saying what is most important to us is academics, that you get the top marks. And the students understand from that, hey, we need to get the top marks by any means necessary. And the easiest and most common means for students is cheating. Instead, in our schools, the top prize, the top status should be given to the most morally upright student of the school. You can give a prize for academics also, but it should be smaller and secondary. Primary is morality. That is what we should be giving the biggest prize, because when we do that, we put a message in the minds of the students. We tell them what is priority when we give it to them in this way. We need to readjust how we are looking at the educational process. Alhamdulillah, in closing, I would just like to mention to you, in case you are not aware, is that another aspect of the problem that we're faced with is the access to higher learning. The Ministry of Education in Nigeria openly admits that less than 20% of high school graduates this year, last year, the years before, will find seats in universities. You do not have enough universities in the country to provide education for the citizens, the graduating students. Not only that, those universities which are available, there is a large percentage of some of the top academic students who will not be able to find seats simply because they can't afford them. Simply because they cannot afford them. Alhamdulillah, I established the Islamic Online University. The Islamic Online University, whose goal, as stated in its motto, is changing the nation through education. Changing the nation, the Ummah, through education. So we have made university education accessible, financially accessible, by discounting the price of studying to incredible, unthinkable lows, so that the average person in the country can access higher education. Imagine getting an accredited degree for $400, $50 per semester. or $60. This is what the Islamic Online University presents to countries of the third world, according to their levels of financial capabilities. We have graded the scale. Furthermore, on the level of Islamization, though it is called the Islamic Online University, and our first degree which we offered is that of Sharia in English medium with Arabic as a subject, making it accessible to the world. Anywhere people had access to the internet, they could study. And today, it is possible to study with the Islamic Online University completely with your smartphone. You can register, you can watch your classes, you can read your texts, you can do your tests and your examinations completely with your smartphone. We have also expanded our offering of courses to include education. We offer bachelors in education. But it is the Islamic College of Education, where education is studied from the conventional studies, but analyzed by professors and critically reviewed, so that what is against Islamic teachings is pointed out, students understand. This comparative study gives them that ability. And what is the alternative that Islam has to offer in the place of these concepts or practices? So we have included a bachelor's in education. And again, this is an area where Muslims are suffering, because many of the Islamic schools that I've visited, they have non-Muslims teaching in the school, because they said we can't find Muslim teachers, qualified Muslim teachers we can't find. So there is a huge shortage of teachers for Islamic schools. Secondly, we're offering a bachelor's in Islamic banking and finance in support of Jaiz Bank, the first Islamic bank of Nigeria, offering Muslims for the first time in their history, their modern history, from the times of colonialism, an opportunity to have banking services done without riba. This is history in the making. 21 branches already, expected to expand to some 31 branches by the beginning of next year. Expanding across the country at a phenomenal rate. And of course the opposition is there. From the Christian side, they were jumping up and down that, you know, we're turning the country into a Muslim country, etc., etc. And of course the bottom line is, you want to do a Christian bank, go ahead. No problem. Reality is that the existing banks are Christian banks, because they have not stood by their principles. The early principles forbade riba. It is in the Old Testament, prohibited. But they compromised. From Henry VIII, in his time, when he wanted to take a loan, he compromised. And from there on, the doors were open. So Islamic banking, because though we have 21 branches, we're going to have 31 branches, the people who are operating in the banks, their background, their training is in conventional banking. So they have a massive shortage. only a handful amongst them, counted on one hand amongst them, who are trained in Islamic banking and finance. So we are entering into cooperation, affiliation with them to provide training for their staff. And we hope that the institution will guarantee for our graduates who study Islamic banking and finance, guarantee for them jobs in the Jaiz Bank, which is spreading across the country. We also included psychology, the field of psychology. Now some people would ask, well, why psychology? You know, have you ever heard of a Muslim psychologist? Does anybody here know or have met a Muslim psychologist? Put your hand up if you've met one. 2 hands. What does that tell you? Awareness. We don't know about this. In our minds, psychology is like psychiatry. Psychiatry deals with mad people. And we don't like, you know, mad jinn and people are possessed, and yeah, we shy away from this. But reality is that psychology is the foundation for counseling. Do we need counseling? Yes, we need counseling. In America, in Canada, in the UK, you cannot set up a school without having a full-time child psychologist working in the school. This is reality. And we never even heard of it. So it means that we are lacking people who are trained in counseling children, young adults, counseling adults. You have problems. You have family problems, which have to do with psychology and all kinds of things. And you go running to the imam, the sheikh, who has never studied psychology, but he graduated from Medina. He's a sheikh. But Medina taught him halal and haram. It didn't teach him psychology. So now he's coming back to counsel you, and you have your problem. And most of the problems are in the gray areas between halal and haram. So now he's going to tell you what he thinks, you know, what comes to his head, what he saw his parents doing, you know, what his uncle, his aunt is doing. He tried to give you from whatever he can from here and there. And of course he's going to make many mistakes. He's going to make many mistakes. That's why in our Sharia program, we require every student to take a course in Islamic psychology and Islamic counseling. We also added business administration. We offer a degree, a bachelor's of arts in business administration. And again, business administration as taught by Muslim professors conscious of Islam, who ensure that the material which is studied from an Islamic perspective. One might say, well, what's the Islamic perspective on business administration? It's huge. It's huge when you consider the Prophet ﷺ had said, "At-tujjar humul fujjar." The business people, the business community are the most corrupt. So it means we need to have clarity on what is the proper way of conducting Islamic business. Muslims are so confused about it. I've visited a number of communities around the world, from Guyana, South America, to Mindanao, southern Philippines. And inevitably, in my lectures, after my lectures, in the homes, business people will come and ask me, is it okay to cheat the non-Muslims? I say, well, what do you mean by that? I said, well, you know, if a non-Muslim comes into our store, you raise the price. But if a Muslim comes, we give them the right price. I said, well, why would you want to do that? He said, well, you know, they're kuffar. They're going to hell anyway, right? So we as well take the money and make good use of it and give it in zakah or in charity. We put it to good use. I say, At-tujjar humul fujjar. This is the danger. I tell them no. Prophet ﷺ said, Man ghashana falaysa minna. Whoever cheats us is not of us. This is not from Islam. Islam spread to most countries in the world by traders who traded according to Islamic principles. This is where it spread, not by the sword, as is commonly portrayed. It's spread by traders. The biggest Muslim country in the world today is 300 million Muslims. Indonesia, no Muslim soldier ever set foot on their shores. It was spread completely by Muslim traders. That is the reality. So we need to bring it back. And then we also offer information technology, IT or ICT. We're currently offering that. So these are all disciplines that we offer at the same price, at the same affordable price, discounted price, to make it accessible to the Ummah. And I would ask those among you that have the means, who have charitable organizations or are charitable individuals, I would ask that you take our hand, join hands with us in providing for the students, who really cannot afford even the affordable, who cannot afford even that $50, in making it possible for them to provide scholarships. We are prepared to help, to sacrifice on our side, to provide scholarships for 1,000 students here at PORT-HARCOURT. If you have 1,000 Muslims, students, who are graduating this year, who cannot afford, there is no money, period, to get this education. If we have you in our midst, then we are prepared to join hands and make this possible. 1,000 this year. If you have another 1,000 next year, we are ready. So those of you that are interested in engaging in such a charitable project to educate the youth of PORT-HARCOURT, or the state, who cannot, simply do not have, they're destitute, they're so poor, they cannot pay even $50 to study. But they are good students, the top students, because we want the cream, who are going to change the society. We are ready to join hands with you. Please contact the administration of the center, the masjid, the complex, or One Ummah, or you have the contact details on the brochure which is being circulated amongst you. Please share this brochure with other members of the community. Let them be aware of this opportunity, this affordable opportunity for our young people to be able to further their education. And alhamdulillah, we also launched last year a master's in Sharia. For those who have graduated, done their bachelor's, they can now go ahead and do a master's. And even people who did a bachelor's in other fields besides Islamic studies, we have a bridge program, a one-year bridge program for them to prepare them to go into Masters in Islamic Studies and Sharia. Barakallahu feekum. In summarizing our topic, closing, I would just like to remind you, this topic was about Islamophobia and our collective future. We spoke about the realities of Islamophobia, the irrational fear and hatred of Muslims, which is spreading worldwide. We talked about its sources as identified by the Runnymede report produced by the government of the UK, identified as the media and the politicians. The politicians exploiting the visibility of Muslims as scapegoats for their political failures, and the media in order to sell their papers and increase their viewers. They create false information or exaggerate true information in the media. Then we talked about the causes of misunderstandings about Islam and Muslims in the world today. We talked about them from ancient times, what Prophet Muhammad ﷺ was faced with, and we talked about them from modern times, the political issues of Zionism and Western civilization's desire to maintain its control over the Muslim lands and their resources. Then we looked at, after looking at the deliberate causes of misunderstandings, we looked at the inadvertent causes, some as a result of misinterpretation, where people, non-Muslims, have misinterpreted our practices and thereby falsely accusing us, like that of worshipping the Kaaba. And we talked about inadvertent misinterpretation and misinformation as a result of Muslim malpractice. The malpractice of Muslims doing things which have nothing to do with Islam and it being associated with Islam. And finally, we addressed the solution. What is the solution? We said, on one hand, on a political level, globally, we need the cooperation of the Ummah. We need the Ummah to come together. That is a wish, that is a dua we make, we pray, Allah, make it happen in our time. But it's something beyond the ability of you and I as individuals. But we still desire it, we encourage it, at least on the level of the country or the region or the city. The Muslim organizations should work together. We have Muslim organizations competing with each other, doing the same thing, duplicity, reinventing the wheel, wasting our resources because one wants to claim the recognition for having done it. They don't want the other to get the recognition. This is so foolish. And then the other solution we said was that of education. This one is within our means. Education is within our means. For us to be conscious and clear about the true goals of education from an Islamic perspective. That the true goals are focused on a moral education. That supersedes everything. Our children should know that it is morally correct to worship God alone. And it is morally incorrect to worship God as a man or to worship God as a cow, as 1 billion Hindus do. They should know that it is morally correct to be generous, charitable. It is morally incorrect to steal, to cheat, to deceive. And it's morally correct to protect the environment, to look after the animals and the vegetation that Allah has put under us for our use, and not to destroy it, to pollute it, to corrupt it, to destroy, to annihilate and drive into extinction various species that we could benefit from. So that moral fiber needs to be there, be brought back into education. After we have suffered from generations of secularized education wherein morality has been removed. So people's goal in education becomes purely dunyawi. It's purely about the dunya, to accumulate as much wealth as we can and have a nice house, nice car, nice set of children, and live comfortably ever after. But this is not the goal of the Muslim. If we make that our goal, then we become, as Allah said, hum kal an'am bal hum adal. They are like cattle, like the sheep and the goats and the cows. In fact, they're more misguided, because all the sheep, the cow, the goats are concerned with is their bellies, to eat, to drink, procreate, and die. When that becomes our goal, then we are worse than the animals. We have sunk below them, because we have a soul, a spirit, we have intelligence which Allah has given us to rise above that of the animals. So, inshallah, I pray that Allah give us success to find and apply the principles of the solution to our problem today of Islamophobia here in PORT-HARCOURT, where we can do something. You're not asked by Allah to change the world, though anything is possible. If Allah wills, the impossible can become possible. But our primary responsibility is here and now. Here and now. We have to be engaged in making education accessible to our youth. Properly educated youth will not become members of Boko Haram. They will know the distinction between right and wrong. They will not be fooled emotionally, hijacked, sabotaged by those who use the name of Islam and its teachings in order to commit mayhem, chaos, and violence for personal gain purely, though they claim it is for Allah. It is in fact for Shaitan. This is our responsibility, and I pray that Allah gives us the courage and the means to accept that responsibility and be successful in this life and the next. Barakallahu feekum.
Jazakumullah khairan. Takbir. Takbir. Alhamdulillah.